Straight ahead on IU NewsNet. IU has dropped its campus mask requirement, but a contagious new COVID strain is now in the U.S. We'll tell you whether it could affect the masking rules at IU.
And how do you prepare for a national security crisis? Some students on campus are finding out through a simulation. We'll take you there.
Plus, free entrance to an NCAA tournament? IU students got a good deal, and the IU women brought home the win. Highlights you'll want to see next. IU NewsNet starts now. Welcome to IU NewsNet. I'm Gretta Hambrook. We begin with an update in our 8th-month investigation into rising sexual assault reports on campus. Let's join my co-anchor Griffin Epstein across the studio for more.
Thanks, Gretta. The number is up to 51 reported sexual assault incidents on campus since the school year resumed last August. But how many of those have been turned over to the prosecutor? IU NewsNet's Mary Claire Malloy has led our investigative reporting and joins us now in studio. Mary Claire?
Thanks, Griffin. IU NewsNet is partnering with the Arnold Center for Investigative Journalism on this nearly 8-month project. Of the 51 sexual assault reports, just 18 have been sent to the Monroe County Prosecutor's Office for review. And of those 18, only 2 of the cases have resulted in arrests and charges.
Arrests came quickly in both of those cases. Former IU student Samuel Elliott was arrested and charged in a rape reported at Teeter Quad in early December. IU student Cal Patel was arrested and charged in an incident of rape and strangulation at Union Street Birch Hall on January 16th. Though some survivors choose not to report and pursue a criminal case, others do. Just before spring break, we spoke off camera to the mother of an IU student. Her daughter reported being raped at a fraternity and was taken to the hospital by police, who then referred the case to Monroe County Prosecutor Erica Oliphant. The mother posted on our IU NewsNet Instagram what happened next, saying, "The police handed it over to the prosecutor, and she literally told my daughter yesterday that in order to prosecute, the victim has to be unconscious, unaware of what was happening, or it had to be forced. The hospital has pictures of the bruising on her chest. My daughter documented the stages of her bruising for the next 2 weeks. And nothing." IU NewsNet has repeatedly asked Prosecutor Oliphant for an on-camera interview to discuss how her office handles sexual assaults. She has declined, instead sending us a copy of the Indiana rape statute. Essentially, intercourse by force, disregard of disability, or incapacity to consent. Victim advocacy groups say something needs to change.
So unfortunately, that isn't uncommon to see. Very few perpetrators actually face consequences or actually be convicted. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I think the biggest one is that the way our legal system is set up, it makes it incredibly difficult to prove sexual assault in a court of law.
Just this session, the Indiana Senate passed a bill to close the rape loophole about the definition of consent. Under the proposed new law, it is rape when someone attempts to have sexual intercourse with a person who has physically or verbally refused the act. Attorney Betsy Green, a former deputy prosecutor from neighboring Morgan County, says it often involves the dynamics of interpersonal relationships. Prosecution is a process that's difficult at best, agonizing and demoralizing at worst.
But it can be very damaging to somebody to put themselves out there and testify and go through the whole process, have a jury give a bad result.
We at IU NewsNet and the Arnold Center for Investigative Journalism have a standing request for an interview with Monroe County Prosecutor Erica Oliphant. We want to ask her about the record number of reported sexual assaults, now up to 51, and the comparatively few charges from her office. She has repeatedly declined our requests for an interview. For breaking news and updates, follow us on Instagram at IUNND and at the Arnold Center. Greta, now back to you.
Thanks, Mary Claire. The mask update came to an end at IU Bloomington, but with students traveling across the globe for spring break, could another surge be around the corner? Universities across the nation were concerned about spikes in cases coming back from winter break, even prompting some schools to go virtual for a few weeks. Now, with the new variant Omicron BA2 responsible for around 30% of cases in the U.S., how will spring break travel impact COVID cases on campus?
We'll probably have, more cases this week than we did last week, certainly when we were on break, and perhaps even more than we had the week before, but it usually doesn't last much more than a week. And it usually doesn't go to levels that are like in any way out of the norm of what we're usually seeing.
While Dr. Carroll said they are monitoring the new Omicron BA2 variant, he said based on recent data, it could potentially already be on the downslope in other countries, meaning it only amounted to about a 3-week spike.
The recent Russian invasion of Ukraine has led to a national security crisis situation for the federal government. Here at IU, students for the first time are participating in a crisis scenario of their own as they prepare to become the next generation's problem solvers.
Radical elements are suggesting that this is an American-led coup.
The Situation Room at IU. With the tension and apparent high stakes, you would close your eyes and think you're in the White House.
I thought, wow, I did not expect them to take that action. Or, that action is going to come with tremendous consequences. A number of times I wanted to say, really?
Students in Professor Courage's National Security Bureaucracy class in the O'Neill School of Public and Environmental Affairs, known as SPIA, are taking part in a 3-day national security crisis simulation.
Gives students who are participating in it a real feel for the stresses, complications, the fog of crisis that makes decision-making difficult. We have a tendency to basically think policy decisions can be formulated rather simply. That's not the case.
Students were handed a crisis in Turkey, where the government was overthrown. As members of the U.S. government, their decisions led to more problems and dilemmas.
It's really deciding between a bad idea and a really bad idea, right? What are the actual trade-offs of forwarding policy, and how does policymaking work? The National Security Simulation is bringing students at IU together from across disciplines and expanding awareness for crisis planning on the IU campus.
When I created this class to try to get some inter-unit discussion, exploration of policy implications in the field of national security.
Students in the class are not just from SPIA, but from the Hamilton Lugar School of International Studies, the Political Science Department, and others. They can add to the political discourse on campus.
National security education on campus, I feel like there's a big focus on kind of evergreen issues such as, climate change, human rights promotions, and those are all very important. But I think as the Ukraine crisis demonstrates that there needs to be a stronger education of hard security issues.
There was more than just security conflict in the simulation. Problems range from economic to domestic issues of perception. It will teach students even if they don't end up in the Situation Room.
Crisis teaches us about ourselves, whether as an individual, as an organization. Crisis is a turning point that has negative implications, but also, in a sense, regenerative possibilities.
The class still has 2 more crisis sessions this semester to complete the simulation, followed by a reflection session. Professor Courage plans to offer the class and simulation in future semesters.
As the Russian-Ukrainian conflict pushes on, the Ukrainian Studies Organization at IU continues to fundraise and support Ukraine in any way they can. Ukrainian Studies Organization is hosting Ukrainian Week, fundraising events starting this past Wednesday through this Saturday. A film screening of In Spring by Mikhail Kaufman was held yesterday at the Buskirk-Chumley Theater for free, but donations for Ukraine were collected. First Christian Church will hold a piano recital for Yvonne Helena Boot, a Ukrainian pianist studying in Wisconsin, on Saturday the 26th at 7 p.m. This event is also free, but cash donations are requested.
The main thing that people really need is financial support, because they need to buy stuff. They can't work. They stop working, and they need to continue somehow survive.
Yvonne Helena hopes that her performance will inspire people to donate. All funds will be donated directly to volunteer initiatives in Ukraine to provide humanitarian aid. The university announced that all student email services will be switched over to Microsoft Exchange beginning May 17th. This change will allow all students, staff, and faculty to use the same emailing platform, which will also decrease the amount of messages between students and staff from going into spam and allow added cybersecurity. Email usernames and passwords will remain the same, and all of the existing data will be transferred to the new platform. Students will still have access to all programs through Google. Additional information about the change can be found at itnews.iu.edu.
When we come back, a historic piece of Bloomington has an uncertain future. We'll tell you why the current structure is not safe.
Plus, Bump, Set, and Spike will take you to an off-campus volleyball tournament raising money for a good cause.
What happens when you offer free tickets to students for an NCAA tournament basketball game? A massive turnout, and as it turns out, a victory. IU NewsNet's Audrey Hausberger joins us with the big ticket this week. Audrey?
9,627 was the number of the night. That's how many fans packed in the seats of Assembly Hall for the IU women's basketball game on Monday night, their chance to move to the Sweet 16. And the lively turnout was largely due to the actions of the IU ticket office. Sunday, the Indiana women's basketball team learned they would host the first and second rounds of the women's NCAA basketball tournament, sitting at the 3 seed. And this Monday, the fans showed up.
I've actually never been to a March Madness here since obviously it's never happened before, so I'm stoked to be here. I think everybody else is too.
Another reason for student fans to be amped up for the March Madness matchup between IU and Princeton, their tickets were free.
The free tickets is awesome because during the regular season, I don't think the stands were ever this full with students. So it's just awesome to see, and it's just, we're going to be loud, we're going to bring the energy tonight. Princeton's not going to know what hit them when we start getting noisy.
With many students gone for the Hoosiers' first hosted game in Assembly Hall last Saturday, IU Athletics ticket office wanted this game to be different. And that's with these stands packed with students for a loud send-off into the Sweet 16.
The students being gone last week on spring break, we didn't have the opportunity, so we wanted to make sure we had a good, positive home crowd, and students bring a lot of energy, so what better way than to offer them tickets, and they actually showed out tonight.
For the first round of March Madness games, students had to pay $20 to cheer on the Hoosiers. But the second time around, IU's ticket office helped the students out.
I had a couple people tell me they couldn't afford to come, so once they were comped, they changed their mind, so I think it definitely made an impact.
This game held the third largest attendance in program history, and the team did not disappoint. The 9,627 seats filled by Hoosier Nation with a 56-55 win over the Tigers. Will the freebies be a new IU tradition?
You know, they can come to any game they want to, and so hopefully tonight, with the way the team's playing, they come back during the regular season as well next year.
After the victory, Mackenzie Holmes and Grace Berger said the energy the students and Hoosier Nation brought to the event helped keep their dancing shoes on as they advanced to the Sweet 16.
The Johnson Creamery smokestack has stood above Bloomington for more than 100 years, but it may no longer reach the same heights in the future. An engineering study found that the top half of the 140-foot-tall smokestack needs to be reduced. Bloomington Mayor John Hamilton said that the Historic Reservation Commission needs to make a decision on how it will rebuild going forward. In October, the Bloomington Plan Commission approved part of the complex to be transformed into a 60-unit apartment complex, with construction set to start as soon as the spring of this year. A sorority on campus, Phi Beta, hosted a lively volleyball tournament and raised money for a great cause in the process. IU NewsNet's Brianna Baylog brings us in on the action.
Gamma Phi Beta, known as G-Phi, hosted a volleyball tournament called Moonball. The moon is a symbol of the sorority. But this night game brought Greek men and women together for a single cause.
For a good cause today, it's just really fun competition. A lot of us haven't played since high school, and we're gonna have really fun today. Hopefully we win.
It was a win-win for the charity. Tickets to attend were just $5, but those dollars added up. The Twin Lakes Rec Center right behind me is where the Philanthropy Volleyball Tournament is being held. 10 sororities and 11 fraternities are participating in the event for the great cause. So you may be thinking, what is the great cause that G-Phi is raising money for? That is Girls on the Run.
It encourages girls
to lead healthy lifestyles and incorporates activities such as running into the curriculum of the program, and its core is to build confidence in young girls and encourage friendships.
And while the charity game is over, the fundraising is not. Fans of Healthy Habits can still donate to the social media page. For IU NewsNet, I'm Brianna Baylog.
For more information about GPhi's philanthropy, you can visit their website at gammaphi-beta.org.
IU will get a visit next week from a highly controversial speaker, conservative Fox News pundit and author Ann Coulter. Coulter is scheduled to deliver a speech at the Kelly School's Hodge Hall from 6 to 7 on the evening of April 1st. She says she will talk about conservative values and discuss what she calls the deeply rooted leftist dogma at Indiana University and many other schools. The event is hosted by a group called Turning Point USA and the ISI Buckley Society. The event is free and open to the public and will include a question and answer session. Deep in March, of the 2 basketball programs, only one is still dancing. Just ahead, more on the IU women and their next big test.
And it's less than a month until Little 500 returns with fans in the stands, and Riders have a big weekend ahead. We'll tell you why in the IU NewsNet Sports, coming up next.
Students had the last week off for spring break, but boy, IU athletics stayed busy. Our IU NewsNet Jack Edwards tells us all about what's going on in the world of IU sports.
That's right, Griffin. It was a packed week, headlined with that free NCAA tournament game for IU students as they transitioned back to campus on Monday. Well, Indiana women's basketball team needed all 9,627 in attendance to edge a 1-point win over Princeton. The reward, taking on one of the most dominant programs in the history of the sport.
It may have been closer than they liked, but Indiana and UConn avoided upsets to set up a matchup in the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament. Indiana welcomed Princeton to Assembly Hall and were pushed to the very end by the 11 seed. With the game tied and under a minute to go, Grace Berger made the biggest play of the contest with a layup to retake the lead.
I was just focused on getting my head down and getting to the rim as quickly as I could, and Nikki set it up perfectly for me, got me going downhill, and then I got to the rim. So Coach Reck, credit to him for drawing up a great play.
Indiana head coach Terry Morin wasn't a big fan of the drama of the finish.
Does it help to have a nail biter like this to prepare you when you play at UConn or play someone like that?
Not at all. No. Are you crazy? I want that game that, the other day. I like that one, right?
For the Huskies, they beat UCF 52-47. A bigger win than IU had, but head coach Gino Auriemma was counting his fortunes after the game.
You probably will look back and say, I'm not sure how we won that game. But we did.
Indiana knows how hard it is to win in March after an Elite Eight run last year. IU heads to Bridgeport hungry for more.
To be able to go to back-to-back Sweet 16s is special. But if you talk to that group in the locker room right now, the job's not done, right? We want to go deeper than just a Sweet 16.
Indiana and UConn duel it out this Saturday at 2 p.m. in Bridgeport, Connecticut. You can catch the game live on ESPN. On the other end of the basketball and the results spectrum, the Indiana men's basketball team ended its season over break, falling 82-53 against St. Mary's. Students certainly had plenty to say about the blowout to cap off what has been a season of change and promise.
Even though the loss to St. Mary's was a disappointing way to end the season, I still have faith in Coach Woodson and the rest of the team next year to make it farther in March Madness.
Beat Michigan in the Big Ten tournament. That was super exciting, and seeing them advance on in March Madness, it's just kind of disappointing knowing that IU had that potential and we kind of just let it go.
I think that we were just gassed out after playing 5 games in 8 days, and especially after our flight to Oregon was delayed a few times, and I think we'll do a lot better next year.
It was hard to expect them to play to their full potential after playing 5 games in 8 days, where they did put down 3 primal performances and showed absolute heart and determination out there.
Students say they are optimistic about the future of this team and this coach. Well, Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb has vetoed a proposed bill that would ban transgender girls from competing in female sports at school. But the legislature says it may try to override that veto. The bill would require organizers to designate teams as sports as male, female, or co-ed. Students whose biological sex at birth is male could not participate with teams or sports designated as female. And students or parents could submit grievances for violations and open the possibility of civil action against organizers. Lawmakers who want to keep the bill alive will vote on the override on May 24th. The Indiana baseball and softball teams took part in a handful of games over spring break. Starting with baseball, they took on Troy in a 3-game series, getting swept. They then beat Kentucky 20-7. They couldn't keep the momentum up, losing 3 of 4 over a weekend series against Xavier. Indiana takes on Evansville in a 3-game series this weekend, looking to get back on track. Indiana softball took on 9 different teams over spring break, competing in invitationals in Louisville and Oklahoma City. In Kentucky, Indiana won 3 of 4, with all of the wins coming by 1 run. In Oklahoma, Indiana won 4 of 5, with the only loss coming against the #1 team in the country, Oklahoma, with Indiana losing 15-1. IU gets Big Ten play underway this weekend against Ohio State in Columbus. Well, from the field to the track, we're less than 1 month away from the Little 500 race. And this upcoming weekend is one of the most important for riders. From 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., teams will take part in the 2022 Little 500 qualifications, aiming to get first pick at which pit they want to be in. Each rider will go 1 lap around the track and exchange to another, aiming to get the fastest time. Quals kickstarts the spring series with the Missing Out, individual time trials, and team pursuit to come next week. Well, it's sure a busy time in the sports calendar, and if teams keep on winning, it'll stay that way. That's all I've got for today. Greta, back to you.
We're all excited for Quals. Thanks so much, Jack. That's it for IU NewsNet for now, and we have a behind-the-scenes student production team in the control room and working in the studio for this broadcast. We thank all of them, and we thank you for watching. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at IU NewsNet. For my co-anchor Griffin Epstein, I'm Gretta Hambrook. Take care, and we'll see you next week.